Integrate Google SignIn in React Native's new architecture for Android and iOS using Credential Manager. So Credential Manager is a new way of integrating Google SignIn and is the recommended approach. So if you want, here is the documentation for Android and here is the documentation for iOS. So firstly, what you will have to do is you will have to search for Google API console. So I'm already into that, and here we will have to first create our project. So I'll just click on select a project and I'll click on new project. You can just give it whatever name you feel like. I'll just give it as RN app. I'll click on create. Then it should create our project pretty soon. Okay, so my project is created. Make sure your project is selected in the drop down. Then click on credentials. Here we will click on create credentials, OAuth client ID, and firstly we will have to configure our OAuth consent screen. So here you can see it presents an option. I'll click on it, configure consent screen. Then I'll click on external. I'll click on create. Here you can give it some app name. I'll just call it as my awesome RN app, React Native app. User support email, just select your email ID, and here you will have to enter your email ID, support email ID, whatever is your support email ID. So I'll just quickly enter an email ID. I'll click on save and continue. Then here you don't have to do anything, just click on save and continue. I'll close this. Now here is an interesting screen. So it calls as test users. So currently we are in a testing phase. We haven't deployed our app to Google Play Store, but what Google recommends that if you are in testing phase, make sure you add some testing email ID as well. But what I have noticed is that even if I don't add any email ID, if I randomly pick any Gmail ID which is present inside my Android device, it still works. Maybe it won't work in future. So I am not adding any users for now, but if you want, you can just click on add users, enter some Gmail ID like your tester's Gmail ID, and just click on add whoever is going to test your functionality. Maybe it might be you. So once you add this, just click on save and continue. And here inside summary, again we don't have to do anything, just click on back to dashboard. Then if you are serious enough to publish your app, then just click on publish your app, publish app, only after you have deployed it to Google Play Store. So yeah, later on also you can do this step, so it's not mandatory you have to do it now. Again we'll click on create, we'll click on credential, click on create credential, OAuth client ID. Here we will select Android, and here we have to enter some package name. So I'll just go. So here is my React Native application. I've just created my React Native application. Okay, I'll come back to the code later on. Just go to app build.gradle, and here is my package name. So I'll just copy paste it and I'll paste it over here. Then we require a SHA-1 certificate. To generate SHA-1 certificate, so this is the command, so key tool --/. Now this is for debug APK. If you're releasing your app, creating a release APK, then you will have to change the values. Now the debug key is present in Android /debug.keystore for Mac. I'm not really sure for Windows. And this is the alias name, this is the store name, and this is the key pass name. But make sure you have to change this value when you are trying to create a release APK. But for now I'll just keep as it is, and I'll click enter, and it will give me a SHA-1 certificate, which I'll just copy paste it over here. Okay, next we don't need to verify ownership, but if you are deploying it to Google Play Store, I would recommend you verify ownership, but I'll just skip it for now. I'll just click on create. Now this is pretty much useless because for Android we require the web client ID. So I'll again click on create credential, OAuth client ID. I'll select web application, I'll scroll down, I'll just click on create. So I'll just copy this client ID and I'll just paste it inside my app.tsx. I will use it later on. So this is for Android. Now for iOS, again I'll have to click on create credentials, OAuth client ID. I have opened my Xcode because I need the app bundle identifier. So I'll just go to my project, sign in and capabilities, and I'll quickly change my package name to something which is unique. Okay, so com dot coding with nobody dot rn app 5. Okay, something like this, and I'll just copy it. Make sure you select your team. I'll select my team later on. And here I'll just quickly select the application type. It is iOS. This is our bundle ID. I'll paste it over here. Make sure you enter your App Store ID as well as team ID if you are deploying it to Apple App Store. I'll just click on create for now, and this is our client ID for iOS, so I'll just copy paste it over here. I will use it later on. So now coming back to the actual code. Okay, so the first step which you have to do is you will have to open this particular documentation, because I will be copying a lot of code from this documentation. So this is for the new architecture. So here is our React Native app, right? The first thing which you have to do is you will have to open your terminal, cd to the iOS directory, so this one iOS directory, and you will have to run this particular command. So this will enable the new architecture for iOS. Then once this is done, you will have to create a folder called rtn my Google SignIn. Ignore the Android folder for now. Firstly, I will create a package.json file. Again, I have copy pasted everything from the documentation. Only this name changes, this name changes, and this changes, and this changes. Then I have created a podspec file. Again, I have copy pasted it from the docs, and only this name has been changed. Then I will create a JS folder. Inside that I have created a TypeScript file. Again, I have copy pasted it from docs. Only two methods I have added: sign in, which will give us a promise of type string. So I am returning everything, email, ID as well as profile picture, in form of string itself. But if you want, you can send it in form of JSON object, whatever you feel like. And here in sign out I have just written void, and here is our so this particular name also has been changed. Now first I will show you for iOS. For iOS, it tells us to create an iOS folder over here, but we won't be doing that. The reason is that we want to write the entire code inside the inside this particular iOS folder, that's why. So again, you will have to open your terminal, go to the root of your React Native project now, and firstly run this particular command. Once you run this particular command, you will have to do cd dot, it will move you outside your React Native project. Then you will have to run this particular command, but here instead of rnapp, you will have to write your own project name. So rnapp over here as well as over here. So change rnapp to whatever is your project name. As you can see, my project name is rnapp. So run this command. Then you will have to cd to this iOS folder which you have, and then run this particular command. So this will do code generation for our turbo modules. All right, then you will have to open the iOS folder inside XC workspace inside Xcode. I have already done that. Firstly, go to your info.plist. So just right click, open as source code, and here you can go to info.plist, and here you will have to add this key. Wait, I'll quickly show you the documentation. You can see this is the documentation, and firstly we will be using CocoaPods, but if you want, you can use Swift package manager as well. So inside CocoaPods, first go to your iOS folder. Inside pod file, here you can see I have added this pod Google SignIn. Make sure you add the same thing. We will be using Objective-C because Swift is not directly supported, that's why I'm using Objective-C. So add this, and then don't run pod install. You will again have to run this particular command, rct new arc enabled equal to 1. Go to your iOS folder in terminal and then run this particular command. So this is a new way doing pod install in new architecture. Once that is done, again open XC workspace inside Xcode. We have already done all this setup, and here you will have to copy this gid client ID. So I'll just show you where I have copied this. So here you can see I have copied this key gid client ID inside your info.plist, and make sure you replace this particular value with whatever value we have copied for iOS client ID, I mean. Okay, and the next part is we have to also copy this cf bundle URL type. Again copy paste everything up to here, and here you can see that I have pasted it over here. So up till here, okay, up till here. You can paste it anywhere, but make sure it is inside this particular within this enclosing dict. So here you can see this is the thing, but here this particular value should be reversed of whatever you have this value. So here you can see first is com over here, then is the Google user content, then is the apps, and then is this particular value. So make sure you reverse this particular value for this particular thing. Okay, once this is done, I'm not really doing this, so I'll just go to add Google SignIn, and here you go to Objective-C. Firstly you will have to copy paste this particular method. So if I go to my app delegate, given that we are using Objective-C++, that's what is the default template for React Native. You will have to firstly import Google SignIn using something like this, and over here you can see I have added this particular code. So you can just copy paste this code. Then okay, this is for macOS, ignore this. Then we'll have to copy, so we'll have to, this method is already present, but we have to copy this particular code. So as you can see, I have copied this particular code. We don't need this return yes, because in React Native we return something like this which is present by default. So just add this bit of code. Okay, once this is done, as you can see, like I haven't created, so this is my output, right? So the sign in button does not look like a Google sign in button. You will have to make sure that it looks like a Google sign in button. I won't go into that, but if you want to create a fabric module, you can use this particular thing which they have mentioned, but I don't want to complicate this tutorial. Then here you can see on click of it, we have to do this particular code. So what I have done is that, again, go back to your turbo module documentation. What it says is that firstly we have to create this header file. So I have created this header file. Again, I have copy pasted everything from docs, only this names has been changed to whatever is our turbo module name. Okay, once you create this header file, you will have to create an Objective-C file, but make sure you change the extension to .mm. So as you can see, it is Objective-C++. Again, I have copy pasted everything from the documentation. So here you can see, firstly we are importing our header file, then we are importing Google SignIn. This has been copied from docs, only this name has been changed and this name has been changed. Then we are overriding our sign-in method. It is calling on the main thread. Firstly we are getting hold of our root view controller, so that's what I'm doing over here. So once we have our root view controller, then we call the gid signin.shared instance, whatever it has been given over here. So that's what I copy over here, and once I get this appropriate value, I'm just returning it back to React Native side. Okay, so that's it. And for sign out, you just have to call gid signin.shared instance.sign out. So yeah, that's it for React Native. That's it for iOS side. Let me quickly check the documentation. So yeah, that's it for the iOS part. Before I show you the Android code, there is one more thing which I want to tell you is, when I was testing the output, it was causing me an issue saying that there was some sign, like I haven't configured the developer credentials properly. So after a lot of research, I found out that there is another way of getting the SHA-1 certificate as well. So you will have to open your Android Studio and run this particular command. So you will also have to cd to the Android folder. Make sure you are inside the Android folder once you open the Android folder of your React Native app, and then run this particular command, and it will generate a different SHA-1 certificate. So there, like I showed you, firstly one command to generate SHA-1 certificate. If after doing that and checking the output, if you're getting an error saying that the developer credentials is not configured properly, then you can try this particular way as well. And here you can copy the SHA-1 certificate and then go to your project. Again, click on this edit auth client ID and replace your SHA-1 certificate, and then click on save as well again. So let me now show you the Android code. So I have already explained you this package.json and podspec file. Next, I have also created an Android folder. Inside that, firstly you will have to create build.gradle file. Again, I have copy pasted everything from docs. The important thing is I have updated the Gradle version. So whatever is the latest Gradle version at the time you watch it, update it to that. Again, compile SDK version, whatever is the latest, you update it to that. This is my namespace which I am using. I am also using apply plugin Kotlin Android. Kotlin standard lib is 1.9.2. Then here I am using this Android X credentials. At the time of me recording, it is still in beta. Make sure you use 1.3.0 and above. Then here we are using Android X credential play services auth, and here we use libraries Google ID as well. and we require these 3 dependencies for integrating Credential Manager with Google SignIn. And this lifecycle runtime is because I want to make use of Kotlin coroutine. Then you can create all these folders which I have created. Create a file called my Google SignIn package.kt. Again, you can just copy paste it. This is I have copy pasted it from the documentation. Only this name has been changed, this has been changed, package name has been changed, and here I have written my Google SignIn module everywhere. Then create my Google SignIn module.kt. Again, copy you can just copy paste all these imports which I have, but make sure you change the name. Then over here again I have just changed the name. Here I have created one lifecycle variable. Here we are creating get Google ID option. Then I have created one Credential Manager and one promise as well. Then here we are returning our name. Then we are overriding our sign-in method. I am assigning our promise to our global promise. Then here I have created one hashed nonce. This is required for security reasons, so you can just copy paste it. Then here I have created our Google ID option. I am setting filter by authorized client as false. I will come back to this why I have set this as false later on in this video. Then here you have to set your own server client ID. Now this should be your web ID and not your Android ID for Android, and for iOS it should be your iOS ID. So this is little bit confusing. Set auto select enable is true. Set nonce, here we are passing our hash nonce. Then here I have created our credential request, and here I am using our coroutine scope to get the credential. Once we get the credential request, I just call the handle sign in method, and here inside sign out again we make use of coroutine scope to sign out. So here to sign out you have to use clear credential state, and here I am using this RTN my Google sign-in. This is the name of the folder which I have created. Now for the handle sign-in method, as you can see, I have first created this passkey. We are not really using passkeys, so you can ignore this as well as this password credential. This is the important part for Google sign-in. So firstly we get the Google ID credential, then we get the Google ID token, and with the help of that we get the ID as in this is email, like this is very bad naming, but ID means email. Then the display name, profile picture URL. There are other properties as well which you can play around with it, and then I'm just sending it back to React Native side. In case of any error, I'm just handling the error, something like this. Now coming back to the important point, why I'm making this as false is because suppose I have 5 Google accounts for in my Android device. If you keep this as false, when the user clicks on the sign in button, he will see all the 5 Google accounts and he can select any one of those. Now suppose he signs out and this is still false, right? Now the second time when he signs in, he will again see those 5 Google accounts and he can pick whatever he wants. The Android documentation says that keep this as true, but according to me, keeping this true at the very first start or when your app is installed for the very first time is a very bad idea, because when you click on sign in, you won't be able to see any Google accounts. You can so in case if you want to make it as true for the second or the third or the fourth time, then you will have to do some kind of a state management in your app just to check whether the user has already signed in for this particular device in your app or not. So it gets complicated. Like the second time when you keep it as true, then you will only see that one Google account for which the user has signed in previously. So I will just tell you that avoid all those stuff, just keep it as false, and the user will see all the Google accounts and he or she can pick whatever Google accounts they are interested in. Okay guys, so let me quickly show you the output for iOS. Now sorry about this, the output would be blurred because I don't want to show you my email ID, but if I click on sign in, it will basically add me to it will open a web browser, and here you will have to enter your credentials. Like I have already entered the credentials in my practice which I did before recording this video, so I can just select the email ID which I have. For you will have to enter your email ID, and I'll just click on continue, and here you can see in the console it has printed all the information like email, user ID and name. Again sorry, you can't really see it, but it has printed, just trust me on this. Okay guys, so here is the output for Android. Sorry I have blurred the output, but as you can see I have the sign in button. So if I click on this sign in button, it presents a bottom modal from which I can select one Google account. So I will just select one of this Google account, and once I select it, I will just clear the log in the meanwhile. oh, sorry, it has already so I'll just select the sign in button again, because I wanted, again sorry, the output is blurred so you can't really see anything, but yeah, here as you can see I was able to get the name, image URL, as well as the email ID and Google ID token as well. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. Bye.